Hello, 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 everybody. Happy Eldest Daughter's Day.
Woo!
Woo. I did not realize there was a day for today for
Same.
us until I was scrolling on TikTok and then I Googled it and then Google confirmed that it's an actual day. I feel like if it's on Google, it's legit. And it also happens to be the day after I was born. So I feel like if that's not like, I don't know what the word
Stars
is.
aligning.
Yeah, stars aligning, serendipity. I don't know what is. So I thought, well, we thought this week would be a really great week and episode to talk about everything we've ever spoken about in terms of like self care, looking after your mind, your body, your business, your money, all these things, and how they kind of correlate with being a firstborn. Because I think with Farah and myself being eldest daughters, a lot of our advice, our stories, and our perspectives are centered around this like role we play in our lives, in our life with our siblings, in our life with our parents, in our life with our friends, in romantic relationships as well. I feel like being a firstborn woman, daughter, really impacts everything. And I feel like it's an upwards crawl sometimes because I think at the beginning of like my adulthood, I had all the typical traits of like a very like, firstborn in my masculine. I put a lot of pressure on myself. I was super independent. I was like parenting my siblings. I was parenting my parents sometimes, and it's heavy. It's a heavy load to work with and live with. So I thought, okay, let's kind of lighten it up this week and talk about how we can kind of thrive as being firstborns and not have it be such a like, I don't know, like heavy. I wanted to say like a heavy crown, or like, what's that phrase where it's like something that's a
I feel
really,
like that's a good way to put it.
yeah, because I feel like we're really good at certain things and it helps other people because we're so empathetic, but it's also very heavy for us to like live with and stuff like that. So I'm gonna jump to you, Farah. What do you think about, maybe let's look at like our life in the last few years. Is there anything that jumps out to you in terms of your lifestyle, your habits, the advice or kind of ways you've changed your life that jumps out to you in terms of like one thing that a firstborn daughter who's listening today who wants to kind of like change her life in a positive way, what's one thing she could do?
Oh, that's a
It's a
loaded
big
question, but
question, yeah.
yeah. But I think for me, something that I would say has only actually clicked in my brain properly recently. I think this has been a process I've been going through for the past year or so. Um, but it's actually realizing that other people's problems aren't yours to fix. I feel like it's such an maybe this is eldest daughter, maybe this is just more generally like depending on how you're raised. I feel like you can get stuck into this trap of feeling like everyone's problems are your own and like you need to fix things for other people all the time and everything is your responsibility. So if things are going wrong or if people are struggling, like it's all on your shoulders to sort it out and figure it out. And I feel like I'm going to say that is a very much an oldest daughter trait just because when you're the eldest, responsibility is almost automatically shifted onto you by default. So that's something I've carried with me forever up until I would say the past year or so. I had a huge shift, but I had a shift, but I didn't really like actually consciously realize that no, other people's problems aren't actually my own because I still felt the guilt. I still felt like if I wasn't able to solve something for someone, then kind of the reason it was happening was my fault. And I had a lot of a guilt associated with the fact that if I couldn't fix something for someone else, then that makes like me a bad person. Like there's something wrong with me for not being able to do that or not trying hard enough or just not being enough for them. So I think as I've slowly, and I'm trying to think at what point did it like click for me, but I think it's a very recent thing. And I think it's also a case of me like observing others. Like when I see my husband, he's also an eldest child, but he's the eldest son, obviously. So I feel like that's a bit of a different dynamic anyway.
Agreed.
But But having said that, I think you you as an eldest, I feel like you do still have a bit more responsibility regardless, son, daughter, whatever. And just seeing how he approaches things, and I don't know, I feel like there's just been some occasions where I if it was like my situation or if I was in the same position as him, I would take on the responsibility of like X, Y, and Z and feel like that was my burden and that was my thing to fix. But he didn't operate in that way. And just observing things like that, I've just started to actually realize other people don't think the way I do. Like, it's not actually normal to constantly feel like the burden is on you every single time and the responsibility is yours. And I think, yeah, maybe just seeing that over and over again in the past year or so, I've started to realize, like, actually, no, these things aren't my responsibility. There's no, like, I can be there to support people. I can be there to kind of offer a helping hand where I can. But if I can't help, and if it's literally not my problem to fix, like, I don't have to feel bad for that. And I can still hold space for myself to also, like, protect my own mental peace, my own well being. And that is all so important, which is also something I didn't really value that much maybe a few years ago.
Yeah, I think it's because we like go into like auto or like
Pilot.
yeah, autopilot. That's it. Because I think you're so right. I think a massive trait of like a firstborn daughter is having that really deep embedded sense of responsibility for literally
Huge.
everything. And I think it's almost to a fault because the sense of responsibility I have sometimes it's almost like overstepping sometimes. I think when especially when it's to do with like friends or situations where like I actually don't play a role in that, there's no need for me to get so wound up about things turning out right or things being done right. But I think it's really nice that you found a balance with like you and Sonny, for example, because I think one way I've really found a balance between being the firstborn and also looking after myself and not burning out almost in that sense is kind of embracing my sense of the sense of responsibility I have in like a romantic relationship context, by the way. That sense of responsibility and like balancing it with like speaking to Sam about like when I feel like I'm jumping in or when I feel like I'm doing too much, and also communicating when like I'm tired, I'm exhausted, and I'm feeling resentful about that role I might play or like that role I've kind of put on myself. And I think communicating that has taken like a number of years of being in a relationship for me, and then also just like having trust that that's not gonna, I don't know, scare someone off or like make someone feel like, oh, they were super caring, nurturing, and like responsible at first, but now they want to take a step back. What? It's like knowing that like it's okay to be a bit of both. And then also trusting that like your partner actually wants to take care of you and like baby you sometimes as well. And just letting yourself be babied. I am loving that. I think
It's so nice being babied. I cannot even describe.
I actually love it. It's actually like there's nothing I love more.
I feel like it's so healing as well.
Oh my god, yeah, it's actually so healing because like I think the nice thing about being babied is that it doesn't actually take away from the fact that I am like super, I guess, like independent and have this like responsibility and all this stuff. Like I still have that. It's just that it doesn't suffocate me and like weigh so heavily anymore. And I also feel like I can pick and choose where that comes in a way more efficient way as well. Like I don't feel like I'm overbearing anymore. And you know what you said at the beginning of the episode in terms of like you've realized that you just don't need to care so much about other people's problems and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that, it's actually such a sense of relief because even though no one asked me to care about other people's problems, I still had that kind of sense of guilt if I didn't act on like, you know, knowing what
It's the
needed to be
acting,
done.
right? It's like you feel like if someone shares something with you, you have to go out there and like act on it and like fix it or like do something. And I find it crazy that there's people that don't think like
Yeah.
that. Like that actually shocks me. Yeah, I think that's like the difference is like actually not having to take action. You just literally just have to sit there and listen and just like be there for someone, support them, but you don't like that responsibility and that urge to like And if you don't, you feel like a bad person as well.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy. I feel like I had quite a few different occasions in the past year or so where like that happened with me. Like say for example, someone vented to me about a certain situation happening. And I think that's what twigged us, because when Sunny like responded to it so differently, because it was more so like a family situation. So there's me like getting so emotional over, you know, like just kind of feeling their pain, or like, you know, like wanting to fix it for them and feeling so bad that I can't do anything to help, and being like trying to figure out like a resolution for it. And he's there like, it's fine. Like he just didn't
Yeah.
have any kind of reaction like that. And I was like, hold on a minute. Are you weird or am I weird? Like, because I didn't understand how you could like hear someone like go through something like that or whatever and not like take that as your burden almost. So that was a shock to me, because then I was like, oh, that's not actually that normal. And that person also didn't expect me to do that. They never once said that.
That's the thing.
They never really even implied that. But I think it's just over years and years and years, you maybe, I feel like it was subliminally taught to me to take on people's responsibilities and like to be that one to help, and oh, you're the savior and you're the one that's gonna like fix things all the time, or like just being lent on for so many years that you kind of just, then like you said, the autopilot kicks in, where any situation that you're put into, that's your response now. And you feel like, and now I've had to kind of undo that a little bit, because it's great to help people, but to your own detriment. Like I feel like when you were talking about burnout, it's an emotional burnout. Like when you're constantly feeling everyone's issues so deeply to the point where you feel like you need to go out there and fix it, it's not healthy. And that's what I've realized. It's not about being super empathetic and, you know, like being this really caring person. There's a level between that and then just like the overboard and, you know, like actually detrimenting your own emotional needs and things. So I feel like that's the line I've tried. I don't know. I still feel like it's up and down. Like sometimes I still feel that guilt or that like wanting to help, but then I feel like I just have to maybe check in if it's actually my issue, if it's like something that I can actually even help with, rather than just sitting there feeling guilty about it. The fact like it's so pointless to do that because it's not even my job in the first place.
Yeah, I think I've done the same in terms of like when I feel that guilt and like I really feel other people's problems like so deeply, especially like people
Yeah.
close to me. Um it's the I don't like the fact that I can, because you obviously not only have your own issues that make you upset, you then get upset by other people's like bad things happening to other people. And like the way that I've really had to deal with that is like understanding that everybody's their own person as well. And especially when it comes to like close friends, I it's a sense of like trust that you know that you've made it clear to your friends that you are someone that can be relied upon for like advice or talking to and stuff, but you know that they're capable of sorting out their own problems, and that actually if someone needed something like really badly, they would ask. Like I feel like we forget that as firstborns. It's like because we've been conditioned, like you say, to be like we've just been leaned on. I actually don't know what the word is now. Yeah, leaned on. I don't know. We've been leaned on for so long that it's because it's created that sense of autopilot. But actually, in our day-to-day lives with our friends, and like when it's not our family, people do ask. Like people don't assume that you're going to do something for them, or people don't assume that you will fix them or their problems. And I feel like we forget that. I definitely forgot that. And you know what? No one's ever asked me to fix their problem.
No one actually ever
No one
really
asks.
expects it. I guess it, except for like if when you're talking about friends and things, like no one, because I would never ever expect a friend to. I wouldn't expect anyone to fix my problems, but it's so weird because even though I don't expect that from people, I don't know why I have this innate like feeling that people are assuming that I will go ahead and
Wait,
do that.
that's so right as well. Like, I don't expect it from others. Why do I think that others
Yeah.
expect it from me? That's such a good point. Like, why is it a one-way street for us?
Yeah. I don't get that because normally it's like you will expect of others what you kind of, like the reciprocation aspect. But that's not really reciprocate, because I would never expect anyone, maybe except for Sunny,
Yeah.
but anyone else, like I will not ever expect someone to like sort anything out for me. Like if I vent, I'm genuinely just like getting it off my chest. But whenever I'm in the opposite situation where they're venting to me, I don't know why I have a completely different reaction.
But you know what? I've just thought there as well. So there's been times where my friend or like people, if they vent or speak to me, and then yes, I can feel their problems deeply and I feel that sense of responsibility. But I've noticed as well, there's times where I feel like resentment, or I am super critical over people who aren't able to sort themselves out in a way that I have been made to sort myself out. Like, in the sense that, like, if someone isn't able to kind of look after themselves, or like relies on me too much, I feel that sense of like kind of annoyance, in terms of like, I think it might be like inner child related, where I'm like, oh, I had to figure all this stuff out for myself and for others. Why can't you do the same? And like, for me, it's really balancing that sense of like responsibility over someone else who doesn't lean on me too much, or like doesn't ask, but then feeling resentful over someone else who can't really do that for themselves. And maybe not, resentful might not be the right word. It's more like
just irritated.
Yeah, like I'm just super critical. But I've learned that like that criticism, there's 2 podcasts and stuff, I've learned that it comes from that sense of like, I had to do it, so why can't you? And it's like an annoyance. So it's really balancing that as well, because I can't get annoyed that not everyone was raised like me, and that other people have been like sheltered a little bit from having to do certain things from themselves. And at the end of the day, none of that matters anyway, because we all grow up, we all learn how to deal with our own situations and like act on that sense of responsibility that we have. But just the fact that someone leans on me too much isn't a bad thing. It's like, okay, maybe this is my way to be that firstborn and like do all the things, then get it out of my system, and then go home and be babied by Sam.
That's a good point. Yeah, I feel like in adulthood it's probably a bit different. I definitely felt that a lot more in my maybe teenage years, or I guess it was more so like the comparison with my brother. Like obviously me being older, if I'd done something myself, for example, like me getting my own job, and then a few years later he's old enough to get a job, but I'm the one that has to help him with the CV and apply and go to interview with him and even find the job for him in the first place, that would absolutely make me fuming, because I was like, I literally did all of this myself. So why does he need his hand holding? So stuff like that used to really, really annoy me. And I feel like that's the level of like being lent on, because it's like, well, I've figured all of this out by myself, and I went to all the interviews and I found the jobs and I sorted my CV out. Like, why on earth does he need extra help than I did? Like, why can't he figure it out? But I think in our adulthood though, I don't know, maybe it's just more so because there isn't so much of an influence, or like you have to do this to help X, Y, and Z. It's more so like, if I want to help, I'll go and help. Or I kind of put that pressure on myself, so maybe I don't feel that like irritation as much, just because no one's actually telling me to go and do that. But I just have this innate like feeling like, oh, if I know I can help, or if I know he needs help with something, I won't hesitate to go and help him. But then I know I've done that off my own back, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different now, but I definitely resonate with that feeling when I was younger, because that was, even now I don't understand that, because I'm like, what was the difference? Like, why couldn't he have figured it out? And it's not that he couldn't have, it was just like, I don't know, he was babied.
Yeah, I kind of think I have a mixture of that with my siblings as well. Like, with my siblings, yeah, I think you're right. It's definitely a line between like, you're not using your brain enough and you're doing stuff, but then you're encountering problems. And that's where I find myself with the sense of responsibility and wanting to jump in and like fix everything. But if you're like completely taking advantage of the fact that I know how to do things and I can help and you don't have to, because why would you? Then I get annoyed. But then that's actually quite clever in itself, because if I was like if I had me as my older sister, I would be like, you've done everything, why do I need to do it? Like, it's quite smart,
So true.
actually.
Yeah, let's just shortcut it.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it, but also, I don't know. It's tricky because also, like, everyone's so different as well. So, like, if your siblings wanted, if they genuinely, like, couldn't do something that needed figuring out, then fair enough. But if it's just like a normal life process that you have to go through and, like, you figured it out because you were the eldest, there's no harm in, like, supporting your younger siblings and stuff. But I just feel like there is a line between, like, them having their own personal development and having to figure shit out and, them getting the support. Because obviously you would get your support from your parents, which maybe they feel like should then travel down from you to your siblings, but rather than them doing it for them. I don't know.
You know what actually riles me up though is, especially when it comes to siblings and just birth order actions, is when my siblings, so I give them advice, or like I've given them a life lesson that's like super valuable, especially if it's like to do with career or money or something like that, and they either ignore it flat out, or they do the opposite, or they just make the mistake anyway because they want to be the ones to make it. And like I struggle to like sit still and watch that kind of behavior, because like I'm like, but I'm trying to save you from either like this like mental breakdown, or like having no money or stress or something like that. I'm trying to like remove something negative from their life that I know is coming in. But they want to be the ones to live their life and like make the mistake anyway. And like I think that's the control freak in me, trying to be like why would you want something bad to happen, even though you're the one? Like, I know it's a sense of like agency and stuff that they want, because I know it's like
they're like rebelling against
exactly
you.
I think that's it. That's what riles me up, is rebellion.
Because I don't know what the age difference is between you and like your second
3 years.
eldest. Okay, because me and my brother are a year and a half, and I feel like I've never had a point in our adulthood, at least, where I've like told him to do something and he's deliberately gone and done the opposite. I feel like I generally give him advice, as in like take it or leave it. Like I'll tell you like what I think you should do, and he'll always come to me for advice. He probably doesn't necessarily take it all, but I feel like I'll give the advice, but it is his life, and I feel like I do that on purpose because I have hated for so long being told what to do.
That's a good point.
So I will never ever go to him and be like, no, you need to do this, or this is how you should live your life, or like you should. I'd make a point of not doing that to him, because I know how irritated it makes me, and I know how like angry I got all those years of being told like exactly what to do and in what order, and given an instruction manual for my own life. Like, so I always make the point of like, you can come to me for advice, I'll give you a suggestion, and then it's up to you what you do with it. I literally don't care. It's your life, and you'll make your mistakes and you'll figure it out, and I'll be here, but it's your life, and I'm not interested in like trying to dictate it. So that's how I do it. So maybe that's why I haven't really noticed. Like, I probably wouldn't notice if he went the opposite way, because I don't give the advice with like the expectation that he'll go and do that, unless it's something a bit more serious. But whenever you're advising your siblings, I feel like generally it's quite like minor stuff, as in like their choices, or like if they want to change their job, or like move cities, or well, that's not that that's minor, but like in comparison to what impact that would have on me, okay, I have a bit longer to travel to go see him. Like, that's kind of the worst of it. So yeah, I feel like they have to learn their own lessons. This is why I'm saying like they can lean on you to a certain extent, but they have to figure shit out for their own selves. That's why I don't get the whole, oh, but they've got an older sibling that can just do everything for them. Well, no, because then they're not a human.
They don't have
being.
agency
They're
over their
just
own life.
a puppet.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. I think you're right. Like, I think I need to tell myself, like, when I give the advice, I need to be like, okay, you've given the advice. They're gonna act on it.
They'll do what they want.
I think
with that
my
info.
problem is that I give the advice, and I always get the feedback after, in terms of like, oh, I did this, this, and this, and this bad thing happened. In my head, I'm like, well, you could have avoided it.
I'm sure I've been in that situation as well, and I'm like, well, don't want to say I told you so. I kind of told you so.
And these days I try to avoid the like, I told you not to do this, or like, I gave you this advice, why did you do this? I'll try to sit back and be like, oh, so like, why did you think Why do you think that happened?
Let's
Yeah.
evaluate that
Let's
situation.
reflect. What journaling prompts can we use to get rid of this? um, so I'll try to do that, but I think, yeah, definitely in my like early 20s when I felt like so full of all these lessons and trying to pass them on. Yeah,
Wisdom.
all of this wisdom from my early 20s. Can you
That's
believe it?
crazy though. Yeah, early 20s is like so. You're a
I'm a
baby.
baby.
You're actually
Yeah,
still a
and you know
baby.
that's quite sad in itself, and I think that's the thing, and that's why we have today as our day. It's like I was in my early 20s, and I felt like I was in a position where, and you know what, that's quadrupled to now, by the way. But in my
Mm.
early 20s, I felt like I was in a position where I'd learned so much, and like I had so much to say, and like so much to advise on the basis of here's how I've felt like all these negative feelings. I don't want you to feel the same. Do this. Like that's where I was coming from a
Yeah.
lot in my early 20s, especially just in the context of like my siblings. Um and I feel bad for her because she probably felt like she had gotten through so much and there was just so much more coming.
It didn't end there.
It did not end there. And the advice changed a lot.
Yeah, that's the thing as well. I feel like as you're growing up, you you do like change your opinions on a lot of things. And I don't know if that's because maybe did your did your eyes like open up to certain things like once you moved away, or was it just because you, I don't know, opened your perspectives to different things, but then later then changed again? Because I feel like it's kind of
Well,
normal.
I think, especially in the context of like being the eldest, the biggest thing that has changed for me is like accepting that I can be like vulnerable, do nothing, make mistakes, and be taken care of without my sense of agency and independence being taken away from me. Because I think that was also a fear of mine, is because like I didn't want to have to depend on anyone else. And I thought that was a weakness and I thought that was going to get me in trouble. Whereas now I know that it's possible. And like I would have seen someone like me when I was in my early 20s, I would have viewed myself as probably like weak and reliant and like not independent enough. And I would have seen that as very negative. And I would have been like, I don't want to be like that. But here I am sitting here like thriving like that, you know?
Yeah.
So I think in that way, my opinion on how I am as a partner has really changed. And like the role I play in
I
a
was.
romantic relationship
Mhm.
has really changed. And the role I'll play like if we get married, like as a wife and stuff, like that's also in my head changed as well. Um, but what about you?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like becoming a wife really changed me. Yeah, I feel like you've seen it. Like even in the way I talk about like how I operate and want to live my life now is so different. Like if you look at me even maybe 3 years ago, and I was so obsessed with like, it's funny because even I used to say it so boldly, knowing that I wasn't like super independent. I still had like Sunny support with things and stuff, but I always strove to have this like so dependent on myself alone, and like I don't need you and I don't need anyone else, and I was so obsessed with the idea of, you know, being able to stand on my own 2 feet and being able to, you know, if everyone disappeared in my life right now, like I would be okay. And I was so fixated on that idea. But like as humans we need people, and it's okay to say that. Like we're built to have communities, and you know we're built into families. Like it's normal and it's natural, and I feel like that is the healthy approach. But for so long I was obsessed with the idea of like being a loner. Even though I wasn't alone, I was still obsessed with this idea that I, you know, had my own back and nobody else did. And I think since then, since getting married, since leaning into that soft girl life and that feminine energy more, and kind of really understanding that all of that was just coming from being in my masculine for such a long time, then when I started to kind of undo that, or start to figure out, okay, well, I don't have to be that girl all the time. It's just serve a purpose at some points in life, and you know when you got to get certain things done. But it's especially in your relationship, your romantic relationships, that doesn't serve you very well at all. Um, so I feel like you were saying earlier, it's getting that balance and knowing when to tune in and tune out of it, because they both benefit you. But I feel like because we are built to kind of be operating from that masculine all the time and be super independent, self-sufficient, and like get everything done, and have others lean on you, so you have your own problems that you only you deal with, and then you have other people who you feel like is your problems as well. All that is a lot, but I feel like when you like layer by layer to kind of get to the root of like why you feel like that, and then chip away at those beliefs, I feel like it's a whole belief system that you kind of have to undo. Like when when you've had all those beliefs of like everything's your responsibility, you you're the only person that have your own back, you have to be super independent to survive in this world. Like all these beliefs, they have an underlying like reason for why you feel like that. So maybe in that time I've just like chipped away at each one, and until I got to this place where I'm a bit more peaceful and okay with just existing and it being okay. I feel like for a long time I felt like I existing wasn't enough.
Yeah, literally, yeah, that's it, isn't it? It's like just being
Like,
didn't feel
yeah,
like
it still
enough.
wasn't enough.
Yeah.
Mm.
And you know what? It's really nice because watching you get married, but also realize all these things, like have all these things like chip away, it's almost like watching you take like one big sigh out, like in slow motion almost. Like that's how I see it, because I love what you said about like the fact that we all need community and stuff as well. I think we forget that. I think even there's like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I'm sure like relationships or just something along the line of like people and community is somewhere on that pyramid. And
It is.
I think when you're the firstborn, when you're saying, oh, I don't need anyone else, and you're saying I don't need to rely on you, you're also just you're kind of disservicing that person in your life. Like if it's your partner, that's like a really
Yeah,
like I
it
feel like
is.
it's
It
almost
is
mean to be
mean.
like I don't need you. And if it's your friends, it's like I think slightly mean to be like I will never need you. I think there's a lot of power in just embracing the fact that as humans, like just to function basically, we need community. And for a community to thrive, you have to have that sense of like, we need each other and like we appreciate each other, and we don't have to need and like lean on each other all the time. But that feeling of like we complete each other as a whole is definitely needed to like feel like you have purpose and a sense of like feeling alive. So I feel like that's a really nice thing that you mentioned as well. But I think that is such a nice way to wrap up today's episode. I hope that everyone listening, especially the firstborns, feel very loved today. I cannot believe we have a day. It just feels unreal.
I can't believe it took us this long to realize we have a day. Like,
I know, right? I think we need to make it bigger as well. There needs to be like events and March, maybe not March. March is a bit too extreme. But yeah, something
people
bigger I
know.
think would be nice. But thank you so much for listening. And I hope if you are a firstborn, you have celebrated yourself, your life, reflected, and just kind of, just love yourself. And maybe just taking a look outside to your community and seeing how you're kind of valuing that, and any kind of steps you can take to embrace your community a bit more. And I hope that if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, don't forget to give us a little rating, follow us there. And if you're on YouTube, subscribe and like the video. Leave us a comment with anything you found life-changing as a firstborn. We would love to know. And we will catch you next week. Bye.
Bye.